I want to tell you something I've only ever said once before, and even then, I stopped halfway through, not because the person I was telling didn't believe me, but because I saw their face change, not into fear, into that careful kind of calm that people get when they're deciding how to respond to someone who might be a little unhinged. And I just stopped. I changed the subject. I said I was tired, and I never brought it up again. My name's Maya. Most people call me May. I was 26 when this happened. I just moved into a new apartment. Well, new to me. The building was from the 70s, one of those places with thick walls and windows that don't close all the way, and a kind of dense, settled smell that old buildings have. Not bad, just lived in. Like the air itself had memory. I want to say up front, I'm not the kind of person who scares easily. I grew up in a house where the basement flooded every spring, where raccoons got into the crawl space, where strange noises were just what old houses do. I was practical. I was logical. I prided myself on that. And I think that's part of why what happened hit me the way it did. Because even I couldn't explain it away. And I tried. God, I tried. I'd moved in mid-October. I was between things, between jobs, between relationships, between versions of myself, honestly. I'd left a long-term situation that had gotten bad in the slow, grinding way those things do, where you're so far inside it, you can't see the shape of it anymore. The apartment felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. Small, yes. Second floor, yes. But mine. Completely, totally mine. The first few weeks were fine. Better than fine. I was sleeping well for the first time in what felt like forever. I made a routine, coffee at 7, a walk before it got dark, dinner that I actually cooked instead of microwaved. I was recalibrating. I felt good. The first thing I noticed, and I want you to hear this the way I experienced it, which is this nothing, was a smell. It was a Tuesday evening. I'd made pasta, eaten at the small table by the window, and was watching something on my laptop in bed. The smell was faint, musty, almost sweet, like wet soil, or maybe like the inside of an old book. I figured it was coming from outside. The building's courtyard had a bunch of old planters, and the soil was probably getting damp with the autumn rain. I closed the window. The smell faded. I forgot about it. The second thing happened maybe a week later. I woke up at 3:17 in the morning, and I know it was 3:17 because I checked my phone immediately, the way you do when something pulls you out of sleep and you're trying to locate yourself in the world. I lay there for a moment, heart doing that low, fast thing, trying to figure out what had woken me. The apartment was quiet. The street outside was quiet. And then I realized I was listening for something. My body had already gone into that mode before my brain had caught up. I don't know how to explain that. The way your body knows before you do. I listened for about 30 seconds. Nothing. I told myself it was a dream. I told myself the building settled sometimes, that old buildings do that this was completely normal. I went back to sleep. I didn't think about it again for 4 days. The third thing was a bottle of water. I kept a glass bottle of water on my nightstand. I'd had the habit for years, something to drink if I woke up in the night. One morning, I reached for it and it was empty. I stared at it for a second. I was sure I'd filled it. I distinctly remembered filling it the night before, standing at the kitchen tap, watching the water rise. But maybe I drunk it in the night and forgotten. I refilled it. I went about my day. And I'm telling you now, this is the kind of thing your brain files under nothing. And I'm only telling you because later it mattered. I'm realizing as I say this how incremental it was, how each thing on its own was nothing. That's the part that still gets me, the way it assembled itself so slowly, like a picture coming into focus in the dark. The fourth thing was a sound. It was a Friday. I'd had a long call with a friend in the afternoon, my friend Sasha, who lived 2 cities over and who I talked to every week or so. She was worried about me living alone in a new place, in a new city. "Text me when you get up, text me when you go to sleep," she'd said, half joking. Okay, I'd said. That night I made soup, watched something I didn't pay attention to, and went to bed early. I fell asleep fast. The sound woke me at 2:49 a.m., a slow, deliberate scraping, low, coming from below the bed. I lay absolutely still. The thing about fear, and I mean real fear, the kind your body produces before your brain has any say in it, is that it doesn't feel like anything you've seen in movies. It's not dramatic. It's a kind of compression, like the air gets thicker, like your body decides on its own to stop taking up space. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, and my mind began to work very, very fast. A mouse. It had to be. Old building this time of year, mice got in looking for warmth. The sound had that quality, small, furtive. I almost convinced myself. Almost. Because then it stopped. And the stopping was worse than the sound somehow, because it felt like a choice. I turned on my phone light. I leaned over the edge of the bed. I looked. Nothing. The gap under the bed was full of the storage boxes I'd shoved there when I moved in, still unpacked. No room for anything. Mice can fit anywhere, I told myself. Mice are small. I got up, got a glass of water, stood in my kitchen for a moment with the light on, checked the cabinet under the sink, checked the corners. Nothing. I went back to bed. I didn't sleep again until 5 in the morning. The next day, I bought mouse traps. I told myself it was the rational response. I set them under the bed, around the kitchen, near the radiators. Over the following week, none of them caught anything. I told myself that was also normal. I almost believed me. If you've ever lived alone, and I think a lot of you know exactly what I mean, there's a particular texture to the silence of a space that's really empty. It has a certain lightness to it. You can feel it. And I started to notice around this time that my apartment didn't quite have that feeling. I kept dismissing it. I was tired. I'd been under stress for years. I was probably just adjusting. The smell came back, stronger, just for a night, then gone. And the water bottle, empty again, 2 mornings in a row. I stopped filling it. I started keeping it in the kitchen. I kept almost telling Sasha. Every time we talked, I'd get close to it and then back away. Things are good, I'd say. Quiet. Normal. I don't know exactly why I didn't tell her. I think I was afraid of what she'd say, and I was more afraid of what she wouldn't say. Of the pause that would tell me she thought I was losing it. I want to say one more thing before I get to the night when everything stopped being nothing, and I hope you'll stay with me because this is the part I actually need you to understand. I was not sleeping well by this point. I was averaging maybe 4 hours a night. My appetite was off. I was jumpy in ways that I kept rationalizing as caffeine or low blood sugar or the adjustment period. Looking back now, my body had already figured out what my brain was refusing to process. I was not alone in that apartment. I just couldn't let myself know it yet. The night it broke open was a Wednesday, November 4th. I know that exactly. It was 11:42 p.m. when I got up to get water from the kitchen because I'd stopped keeping it by the bed, and on the way back, passing the gap between the bed and the wall, I smelled it. Strong this time. That wet soil smell, right there, at floor level, and I stopped. I stood there for a moment that felt like several minutes. I turned on the lamp. I looked at the bed, the storage boxes. I noticed something I hadn't before, or something that hadn't been there before. A small folded piece of paper tucked against the baseboard at the head of the bed, almost behind a box. A piece of paper I had not put there. A piece of paper with my name on it. Not my full name. May. The short version. The version only people who knew me used. I didn't touch it. I didn't pick it up. I took 3 steps back and stood in the center of the room and just stood there, because that was the moment. The moment my body and my brain arrived at the same place at the same time, and both of them knew. He was there, under the bed, behind the boxes. He had been there in that small dark space for, I don't know, days, weeks, long enough to learn my name. I want you to imagine that. I need you to really try, not the drama of it, not the movie version, just the ordinary, devastating reality of standing in your room, in your apartment, your safe small place that was supposed to be yours, and understanding that it never was. Not completely. Not with him there. I left the apartment. I didn't take anything. I went into the hallway and called 911 from the stairwell, sitting on the top step with my back against the wall, watching the door. My voice was very calm. That surprised me. I described what I'd found. They came quickly. They found him. He was there, in the space behind the boxes, in a kind of shallow burrow he'd made by rearranging things so carefully that nothing looked disturbed from above. He'd been there, and I still have trouble saying this number, for at least 3 weeks, maybe longer. There was food, a container of water, minimal things, carefully managed so as not to be noticed. My food, my water. He was mid-40s. He had some connection to a previous tenant. The police had questions I didn't have answers to, and questions I had answers to that they didn't seem to have a use for. How he'd gotten in, why he'd written my name, what exactly he'd planned. The answers I got were partial, and the ones I most needed were never really answered. I didn't go back to the apartment. I stayed with a friend for a month, and then I found another place. First floor this time, in a building with a different kind of history. The new apartment has good light and a landlord who answers his phone. I've been here almost a year now. I check under the bed. Every night. Not quickly, the way I used to do as a kid. Just a glance to release the habit. I pull up the frame and I look. I look at the corners. I check the closet. I've made peace with the fact that this is probably permanent now, this thing I do, the checking. Some door in me got open that November, and I don't think it's ever going to fully close again. The smell, though, that's the thing. Sometimes, very rarely, I catch that particular smell. Soil, old paper, something damp and enclosed, and my whole body responds before I've even consciously registered it. A muscle memory, maybe, or something deeper than muscle. Some part of me that decided, that night in the stairwell, to never be caught unprepared again. I'm not telling this to scare you. I don't think I even could, really. The scariest part of it isn't anything I've said. The scariest part is the weeks before, the bottle of water, the sound I explained away, the feeling that something was off, that I kept choosing not to investigate. That's the part that lives with me, because I think about how close I came to just never knowing, to going on explaining things away indefinitely, and I wonder sometimes, not about him, Not about what his plan was, but about myself, about how much my brain was willing to not see in order to keep feeling safe, about how the mind will build a whole architecture of reasonable explanations rather than hold the thing it's most afraid of. I don't have a way to end this that makes it feel finished, because it isn't. The nights are different now, quieter in a way, because I'm more careful, and louder in a way, because I'm listening for things I didn't used to listen for. Both of those feel like the right response. Both of those feel like the truth. Before I go, I want to ask you something, and I mean this genuinely. Have you ever had that feeling in your own home? That specific, wordless sense that the space wasn't quite what you thought it was? I'll read every single one. Because I really do think, that more people know this feeling than talk about it. And the not talking about it is part of what makes it so heavy to carry. You don't have to carry it alone.